jacket off? Coming out of Brooklyn?
All right, we are back. After the beat, this is when things get freaky, and usually we pick out questions beforehand. Unfortunately, with all of this transpiring just minutes, I mean, we literally, Jeff, tell them what it was like driving from Barclays.
Can I just say that the thing that those UFC, Chuck, you didn't experience it, but Danny and I did. The thing that those UFC fighters experience on that bus with McGregor and those guys like throwing stuff, it was nothing compared to the drive from the Barclays Center to here with this knucklehead behind the wheel.
Subway.
Well, I had a car. It was just the thing, you know, I have to get, around.
The scariest thing in my...
Yeah, it was scary.
I'm not proud of the way I drove, but I am proud of the fact that we got here in one piece.
Yeah,
we parked. I felt bad for Jeff, who was planning on taking the subway and was just like, oh, great, I got a ride to the show, and was in the back. And usually in the back, I feel like you get the brunt of, you know, the bad driving.
Just imagine what it's like for your poor kids, you know,
sitting
in the back seat of the
car.
car.
As I said to you, now you know what it's like being my wife, because the exact same scene played out on Sunday as I was trying to figure out the whole Khabib-Tony news.
Wow. Just wow.
Do you like to be the little spoon or the big spoon? Just for, I'm just kidding. Anyway, okay, so here we go. Here's some questions. I am actually just reading these as we speak. So as I said, usually I like to pick out the questions beforehand, but I haven't been able to read them, and of course my Twitter. So okay, here we go. A lot of questions about Conor McGregor, as you would imagine.
Was he fighting this weekend?
Well, here's one question. How do you feel about? And I'm sorry if I won't get to everyone's handle, but we do thank you for sending the questions. How do you feel about, and this is completely off the grid, Donald Cerrone fighting Leon Edwards in Singapore? Is this the kind of fight that, of course, Leon Edwards wanted the big fight, but Cerrone seems to be that sort of gatekeeper guy. Are you surprised that he's taking these fights?
Well, not surprised, because he's taken this kind of fight before. Like he's one of those few guys in that upper echelon who will keep giving these guys trying to break into that sphere chances to do it through him. So in that way, he is a literal gatekeeper. Like he's like, hey, if you can get through me, you belong in there. If you can't, you don't. You know. So from his perspective, I'm like, good for him once again for doing that, and for Leon, great job for him for lobbying for a fight, because obviously he was very vocal and he had Cerrone's name in the back, you know, as a backup plan if he didn't get his original one, and sure enough, here he is. So once again, it's just that old thing, like you should always have somebody ready that you want to call out.
I'm just a little confused as to why they booked that fight in Singapore, but it doesn't make much sense.
That's
but
there.
I mean, it's a good fight. I think it's a fight that makes sense. It's a great point that you bring up. Cowboys is one of these weird fighters that he's fought the best, but he can also not only roam around the top 5 and the top 10, they can also pull, you know, he can also roam around, you know, the outside of that, which is weird, because mostly as soon as you make it into the top 5, it feels like you only get top 5 opponents. Look at Anthony Pettis, you know, he's fought all top guys. But Donald Cerrone is one of these guys that can circle around and fight these lower guys. And Leon Edwards, you know, he's proved that, you know, he's right there, and he could possibly be one of the elite. He's definitely a bright prospect.
It's fascinating because not that long ago, he took fights where he could drive his RV and park it and stay in his RV. He wouldn't stay in hotel rooms. Now he's fighting overseas. More and more, it's like it's just such a different.
Oh,
like,
there
He's
was
going to drive his RV though.
I believe off the top of my head, his fight in Poland against Darren Till was his first international MMA fight.
And now all of a sudden he's going to Singapore, because we went to Poland. I was like, you don't think of Cerrone fighting outside of the continental U.S. You sort of think of him as like being able to drive it. Now he's going to Singapore.
But are you surprised that he's not taking more, you know, Robbie Lawler-like fights? You know, as opposed to these young guns. You know, he did beat Masvidal, so kudos to him. But Darren Till
lives up to his credo, right? Like of anywhere, anybody, anytime.
I'd love to know if Cerrone even knows who Leon Edwards is, because I have a feeling he's going to say he has never
he didn't
heard
know who Darren Till was, so I don't think he knows who Leon Edwards is.
Yeah, if he doesn't know Till.
He doesn't strike me as the Fight Pass type, Donald Cerrone.
No, I don't think he's a subscriber.
The Fight Pass
Until they start putting rodeo on the Fight Pass.
That's right. Okay, yesterday on UFC Tonight, here's another question. Yesterday on UFC Tonight, Dana White said that Brock Lesnar is coming back. And by the way, just as an aside, I love the irony of Dana White, you know, going on a highly rated cable show and announcing this sort of nonchalantly when, you know, a couple years ago I was, you know, banned for 48 hours for breaking I mean, like, what has happened to Brock Lesnar? I feel like he deserves a bigger announcement than this.
Sense of something.
You're trying to suggest that he banned himself?
Well, I just mean like you would think that this is a bigger deal than just sort of casually throwing it out there.
Right.
I didn't want you to spoil the news, so.
You tweeted something out about this afterward, I think, and until I saw that, I just thought, well, this.
You thought it was promoter speak.
Well, this is all. It's all.
This is a real thing.
Promoter or TV contract speak. Somebody who's
No, this is a real thing. This is a real thing, but it's never done until it's done, of course.
But real meaning what? I mean, if they sign him and he's now on the UFC roster as of whatever Sunday when he's done with wrestling. What does that really mean? When is he going to be eligible to fight?
It'll have to be 6 months.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: the UFC is coming back to Madison Square Garden on November 3rd, as of right now. So let's say, what would that be? April 8th. Let's say he signs on April 9th, right? 6 months, you're good to go, right? So my question is, right? That would be October.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. My question is, are you in on this? Like, does this excite you? Do you want to see 40-plus-year-old Brock Lesnar back? And B, how would you book his return?
I mean, you can't say you don't want to see him. I mean, the bottom line is every time he's in there, it's a pretty compelling thing. Even that UFC 200 going against Mark Hunt, it was fun. And the contemplation, he was so curmudgeonly and then lead up and all that stuff. And there was a lot of you that wondered, like, hey, he was sacked originally with his stomach issues and stuff. He lost a couple fights. That was a big deal. It became like, now how does he look? Now he's got that corrected. He looked pretty good, but now there's an asterisk over that whole fight. It's weird because he's always, you're dealing in red tape every time you're dealing with Brock Lesnar. But at the same time, the guy he's a draw, man. He's a behemoth, and you could put him against so many different heavyweights, honestly. And I feel like you can't go wrong, But I mean, fighting guys like Ngannou or somebody who would like to, you know what I mean, like that type of fight. I mean, just imagine the magnitude of that fight.
I mean, it's hard to get this one wrong because you can put in Brock Lesnar with anybody, and it's a huge draw. So I think you can put him up with just anyone in the top 15 of the UFC. Jones. I mean, if he's eligible to come back, that'd be an amazing fight. But I think the UFC is currently trying to get ratings up, and Brock Lesnar losing perhaps is not the greatest if he plans to continue having more fights. So I would be a little more careful with who they match him up. Perhaps not give him a Francis Ngannou immediately, but someone. A legend, someone that's been around for a bit, has a name.
Heath Herring too.
Who,
yeah, maybe Heath Herring too. That's
Verdum or something, like someone on that.
Verdum, yeah, that would be a good fight, I think. Or
is it crazy to suggest John Jones? Is it crazy to suggest?
It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You got these two guys.
Was it crazy to suggest Stipe Miocic?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think.
How can you give him a title of? Well, assuming that Miocic is still a champion.
Wait a second. Based on who? Based on whose standards?
Well, based on my standards.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, he's a champion. He's a world champion. So that's why I say it's crazy.
Lest we forget, a 2-1 Brock Lesnar got a title fight. Yeah. Way back when, 10 years ago.
Right.
And things have only gotten nuttier in the UFC since then.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm not saying it. When you ask crazy, you're saying, is this a possibility? Yeah, it's a possibility.
I feel like it's a possibility.
It's a possibility, yes. But in terms of, is this something that I would look at as a legitimate title fight? No, of course not.
I think he should come back and fight for an interim belt.
John Jones.
I'm nothing if I'm not
that
not
seems
consistent.
more on the right track.
John Jones, Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic.
You can't go wrong with any of those.
Which do you think has a better chance of happening? Which you put your money on?
Man, the John Jones one's very compelling. And
I feel like that's the one they want to happen. Yeah. Of course, the stars need to align with Jones and his suspension. We don't know what he's getting.
Given the equal playing field of where they're coming from, that would, you know what I'm saying with all the things that have happened to them.
The PDs?
Yes, would just add this weird component to it where you're like, well, of course they should face each other. But then you have like the partition of the weight classes. John Jones had flirted forever with going to heavyweight. Who else is going to come back? To me, that would be the most compelling fight that they could make.
Yeah, then they don't even need to worry about the commission suspensions. Just hold it on like a barge out in the ocean.
Fine.
Somewhere.
Are you surprised he's coming back? I mean, according to everything that we're hearing, are you surprised that he's on the verge of coming back?
The first time he left, I wasn't sure he'd come back, only because I felt like he was going to make millions over in wrestling again, and you knew he was going to be able to do that. He was a very private person who did not want to be doing the travel. He was sick of all that. So I was more surprised the first time he came back. So then I saw the way he's kind of operated his career since then, so nothing surprised me about how he's a businessman when it comes down to it. He just knows what he's doing. He knows how to cash in. It doesn't surprise me, but I do feel like, to his credit, there is something in him he wants to prove in MMA still. I really believe that he believes he
What a
has more
shot
to
in the
give.
arm it would be for the company, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to just get this guy back in your lap, you could book Brock Lesnar against anyone, really.
Yeah.
He still has that drawing power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I still feel like there's that appeal, even if what happened. Is it crazy to suggest a rematch against Mark Hunt?
I think it is. I
What a
mean,
story that would be, right?
I don't think Mark Hunt would take that fight.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
You don't think so?
No,
You
I
don't think he wants revenge?
I don't think he wants to fight.
I think Mark Hunt would take that fight. I've not asked him, but I think he would.
I don't know. I wouldn't. I personally, I wouldn't like to see that fight. I don't know.
Why?
I already
like the-
saw it. I know what it looks like.
I mean, the
different
drama
circumstances.
of it doesn't necessarily appeal to me. I guess if I'm going to see this guy, I want to see him against someone new, someone who is someone
face.
dangerous. You know,
Like Stipe Miocic.
Yes.
no.
Mark Hunt, Stipe Miocic.
If they get Brock to, let's say they just match him up right and they just get him to get a little bit of momentum in the UFC, just even one win or 2 wins, and then get him a title shot against Stipe, that would be huge.
Put him against Overeem again.
That'd be fun.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Well,
I'd watch
the
that.
first one was with his last fight in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
Up until the
Yeah.
Mark Hunt comeback. Was, of course, when he said he was most affected by his stomach ailment and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So in some ways, you'd be like, well,
Yeah, well-
now here's a real version.
or the Stipe DC loser.
Okay.
You know,
Although if it's DC, then he's going back to 205 probably.
I really like that Overeem idea. I think that's a great
I mean,
matchup.
that's what you're saying. I mean, I feel like they probably have 10 scenarios they could work with.
What about the fight that we wanted to happen many moons ago and didn't? Of course, they coached on The Ultimate Fighter against each other, Junior Dos Santos. He has his own USADA issue that is yet to be resolved. So that kind of falls into your coming from the same place theory.
like a whole new weight class.
235,
Yeah.
red tape.
That's right, the red tape weight class. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine everyone in the UFC thrilled at the idea of him coming back. But let's see what
Hard
happens.
not to be, man. I mean, you know, anybody who's a draw and anybody who compels the outside to peak. I always like those guys, you know,
Yeah.
and he's very good at it. He's very practiced at being in that spotlight. So it's always whenever he orbits back into MMA, it's always a fun thing to
Well,
think
there's
about.
nothing bigger than, nothing more exciting than covering one of these fights where it feels like there's a legitimate superstar.
How about?
Go ahead, no, please.
I was going to say, how about Brock versus Roman Reigns?
No, that's happening this Sunday.
Oh, okay.
You gonna watch?
I don't think so. I mean, unless I were somewhere where somebody had it on, but I doubt I would.
What do you mean somewhere? Where else would you be other than home on a Sunday night? You just like roaming, the bars, the local bars?
Maybe walk around town. You never know. I don't think
What's
so.
up with MMA fight? It seems like all of our guys are closet.
They love it.
wrestling. Not even closeted anymore. They're all out and like
is not
Mark's out there. He's out there covering it. We already know about Dave Meltzer, but Dave Doyle is all about it.
Here's another one for you guys. Are you surprised at how popular Khabib Nurmagomedov is? You were there yesterday. You saw it. I mean, I witnessed it on my show, the numbers that we got when he was in studio. I would argue that it's Conor, Nate Diaz, Khabib. I would argue Khabib might be even bigger than Nate Diaz right now.
Last week on this show, I said that I felt like his star power was very underrated. With this whole talk of Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor, people forget that Khabib is a huge star. I just looking at the YouTube videos, like from our views that we get from our interviews, just the live show that we had on the MMA Hour, that was just insane. And people want to see him. He's like this Triple G figure, and the way he carries himself, just the way he fights. I have people that, friends that are not really too into MMA, and they'll watch the Conor McGregor fights and all that, and they're texting me about Khabib. So I think he's a star power.
At some point, his pay-per-view numbers will speak for him. Like, I think that's the one measuring stick that everybody wants to go with. But I've said it before, if he had been fighting the whole time without these big breaks in between, I think he would already be there. Yeah. He's the type of guy who has that it factor. You realize it's a different kind of it factor because it's a little more subtle than some of the guys because he speaks a different kind of English and all that stuff. He's not as bombastic as some of these guys. But once he's in there, there's something that's very compelling. He gets in there and it's just, I don't know what it is, but you notice it. Everything gets bigger suddenly that he's in there. Even when he fought the guy in Orlando, what was the guy's name?
Daryl Horcher.
Yes, Horcher.
Oh, Horcher.
Even
yes.
then,
Tampa.
Even in Tampa, wherever that was in Florida.
Right.
He was even on that fight. I just remember thinking, dude, this guy is like, he has a big presence when he's in there, and I feel like that's one of the. Not everybody can have that. You know what I mean? He carries himself just right that matches who he is in that cage.
And I feel like something important here is that in this age where trash talking is so important, guys sometimes overdo it. Guys sometimes overdo going on Twitter, talking on interviews. Khabib just does enough, and he just does a little bit and kind of leaves you with some little nuggets here and there. He doesn't go out there and campaign for things. Nah, he kind of just carries himself a certain way and
like the Iron
and does
Sheik
things
in that
subtle.
way.
Yeah.
Okay, one more for you guys. UFC has booked TJ Dillashaw against Cody Garbrandt 2. It's happening August in Los Angeles. How do we feel about this? It's happening. And now they're targeting DJ versus Cejudo too. We talked about this being a possibility a couple of weeks ago, but now that it's actually happening, does it not feel a little weird that they got us all excited about the super fight and now it's not happening?
Yeah,
because
that's why, right? Because we flirted with it and it felt like the right time for this to happen. I feel like that was the fight for both guys because Dillashaw, I think a lot of people wanted to see Cody Garbrandt rise up, and this was his moment. Well, Dillashaw ruins that. You have Demetrius, who everybody's like, we want to see him challenge where there's some doubt to one of his matchmaking in one of his fights. So you have these two guys that can come together. It just seemed like the right time. To go back the other way and have a couple of rematches, you know, you can't help but feel a little bit like, because we've already been through this. I know that once Dillashaw and Garbrandt start talking, there'll be some, you know, it'll get back up to where it needs to be. But right now, I have to admit, I was a tiny bit disappointed with it, man. I wanted to see the other fight. You know what I mean?
I do think though that the rematch aspect of it checks the right boxes for me in terms of a rematch because of the fact that the first fight. Each guy was hurt, and I think that when you've seen two guys go at each other, and you see, I mean, really, if that first round is 10 seconds longer, the fight's over, and Garbrandt is the winner.
But I'm surprised to hear you say that. Sorry to interrupt, because usually you get a rematch like a Joanna who defended the belt 6 times. Garbrandt never successfully defended it once.
Well, that's the other side of it, though. I mean, as a rematch, I'm compelled by the actual fight. In terms of a title fight, I just don't think it's. I don't want to say legitimate because that's a little stronger than I want to be.
Right.
I want to say that it's not the
Jeff
appropriate.
just doesn't think any title fight is legitimate at
It's
this
not
point.
the appropriate matchup right now because you're talking about a guy who never successfully defended his belt, getting an immediate rematch. And I just don't think that should happen.
I think that works also if there weren't any contenders, but there are plenty of contenders at 135. Rafa Assunção.
Poor Assunção, man.
Poor guy. I mean,
never
he
get it.
clearly deserves a shot. He had an amazing performance in his last fight.
But there's no one clamoring for that fight. Like, you look at the comments, no one's like, what about Assunção? It's not some sort of...
same situation for years.
In this era that we're in right now where, like, entertainment is over sport, and the UFC's kind of getting some hate because of that, and things are not playing out because when you put entertainment over sport, you know, things get a little wacky. And you know, we talk about, for example, divisions being tied up with champion versus champion fight. They just tied up featherweight, and they didn't have that planned. Right. So I'm surprised they're, you know, in a way I'm surprised they didn't make the DJ fight, but in a way I'm relieved that, okay, at least we're keeping some sense of sport here, and it's not just all entertainment.
Guys, it has been a fun day. It really has. And I say fun in the most loose way possible. It is... This is one for this might be chapter 9 of Highway to Helwani, but as you said, Chuck, the story is developing. So we're happy that we were able to do this live presentation of the beat at a special time. We appreciate everyone who watched. I can assure you we didn't plan on this happening after a crazy scene at the media day. Happy that we're able to give you as much information as possible. Do want to tell you to stick with MMAFighting.com because I'm certain that plenty more is to come, and if anything transpires from here on out, we will be there to deliver it to you. Of course, UFC 223 is around 48 hours away now, and it's happening in Brooklyn, and it still is a great card on paper. Glad to hear that Rose Namajunas is remaining on the card. Glad to hear that Khabib Nurmagomedov is remaining on the card. We hope the weigh-ins go off without incident. That's coming up tomorrow. Still no update on Michael Chiesa's status, so we'll keep you updated on that. Unfortunately, we lost the Artem Lobov versus Alex Caceres fight, so still to come. Plenty of videos, plenty of interviews from Media Day earlier today. So that's coming later over at MMAFighting.com. On Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll have the official weigh-ins. We'll be airing them live on our YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, it's the ceremonial weigh-ins Friday night. And then it's the UFC's 25th anniversary press conference, which should have a lot of fireworks as well. I do believe Colby Covington is in town, so
nice.
The Colby show is here as well, in case you...
This is one weekend he's not going to out like taboos.
That's right. That is right. That is right. And then, of course, it's the fight on Saturday night. Okay, that does it for us, for our entire crew. For Jeff, Danny, Chuck, I'm Ariel. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on Friday, and enjoy the rest of your evening.